It is my privilege to share with you just in a few minutes some of the things we are experimenting with. We are in the middle of a pilot process. The purpose of our little working group is called Psalms That Sing. It's an interagency, Bible translation agency group, and we are working on a translation guide for every psalm. And the end result is to have a range of products per psalm. So our line is we go from oral to print to performance. Let me just explain to you the 10 steps that we have. The first step is what we do is what we call listening. And for that we have prepared two guide translations. We don't call it a front translation. It's a guide translation where actually some exegetical decisions have been made. But what we do with those guides, we also try to make them we adapt them to the local language family. The workshop trainer then works with a group of 10 artists, 10 or more artists selected by the church or selected by the community. And then it is being read to them 3 or 4 times, each different version. They can see the differences. In some cases, we even use a third one. Maybe we'll read a translation that's already available in their area of the world, or maybe a neighboring language, or whatever it may be. So the second step is what we call appreciation or familiarization. Then it's a very intense dialogue between the trainer and the team, and all sorts of difficult issues. What is the theme? What is the background? What is going on in the psalm? What is the emotional analysis, and asking the participants to discover these things, to actually guide them through a process to discover where the boundaries are between the stanzas. What is the flow of thought? What is going on when there's a big shift from a first person to a third person, which we often find when there's a tense shift. And there's maybe, it's referring to the present, and all of a sudden it's referring to the past. What's going on? And also difficult terms. But so we go through all those questions and deal with them one by one. And almost 40% of the time we spend on the initial listening and the familiarization process, and then also the internalizing process. And then the fourth step is to compose maybe a song from the main theme. It doesn't have to be, in terms of translation, 100% accurate or faithful. Whatever impression of the emotion they might have, they can do. And then it gets recorded, and they listen to one another's, and then they go back again to the internalizing, to the point that most of the psalm is almost memorized, if it's a shorter psalm. Once we go beyond 10 verses, we find that people struggle to remember everything. They need much more time to remember the whole. So basically have to memorize 10 to 15, 16, 17, 18 verses. That's a big order. So what we do then, we want them to at least internalize the main flow of thought. And there's a couple of things we do in the internalization process. It's a very much part of what is happening with narrative as well, but with non-narrative like poetry, it is different. So what we do is to really with them analyze the flow of thought, especially the transitions. But this is very difficult. This is very, very difficult, we have found, because first of all, we don't always fully understand where those transitions are. So it has taken a lot of study, a lot of research, but furthermore, what is in what context? What is the setting? Often very little information is made available about that. We don't know. And what we do as practical steps of internalization, one is, for example, we if it's a longer psalm, we suggest to them in small groups to think of a word in each stanza. That's sort of what captures that, and then maybe string the words together. In others, we suggest maybe let us try to get the mood, the emotion, do an emotional analysis, and for them to discover themselves, that is moving from despair to hope, or to anger, maybe to rest, to thanksgiving, to confidence. Another thing we do is to act it out. And as they do that, it becomes embodied, it becomes real to them. Another thing we do, and that's a new thing we are experimenting with, is to actually use gestures. Use gestures for every word. For example, for God, or for even for very complex terms, we're looking for a gesture. We're actually thinking of going and look over the shoulders of those doing sign language, because there are a lot of universals that they use. They often sign some concepts in a slightly similar way. Maybe we can learn from there and use those same gestures, learn them, and as we go through the psalm and actually say it with the gestures, the artist more and more internalized the psalm. To a point we have done even, they only do the gestures, they don't say a word, they just gesture the whole psalm. And so by the time it comes to actual drafting, the oral drafting process, the psalm has really become part of them. That, after a long familiarization, appreciation process of really getting to know what's going on. Then we come to the point of the oral drafting stanza per stanza. We have now divided up the psalm in stanzas, and then we have a new set of questions dealing more with some of the details. In the back of the guide, there's an appendix, there's a Hebrew layout with a word by word interlinear, and with very detailed notes linked to the interlinears. And there's a lot of good information available, which we try to distill and make it very much accessible. And then after a few times, they listen to one another. Maybe a group of 10, we'll divide in 3 groups, and each one will do a different stanza, just to save some time. And then at one point we actually transcribe. Yeah, and then we go to and after the transcription phase, we go back to the oral drafts, and what we have transcribed, and we look again at the exegesis. So, are all the ingredients in the pot? Is everything there that needs to be there? Have we missed anything? And then we look at that, and then the next step is then we go back and we look at what we have learned from the poetry in that language. Have we used those constructions? Is the rhythm right? Where the accents are being put. You have stress and accent, you have intonation patterns. So we need to check, is this translation, that what we have done, is it really verse? Good quality poetry. And obviously there's a process of discovering in our workshops as well, where we do poetry discovery in the languages we work with. And then the final stage is when the final products are being put together. So we will have a oral official version that can that will be uploaded, made available immediately to the community. And there will also be a written transcription of that will be available as well, simultaneously, that they can maybe listen and read at the same time, or one or the other. And then when that is available, and those 2 official versions are, did capture something of the verse and the poetry of the language, hopefully it will have a certain musicality to it, a certain rhythm to it, a certain melody to it. It differs from genre to genre within the language, and also from between languages. Every language has got their own rhythm patterns. It's something we are just starting to explore. And then once it's done like that, it is actually not hard to come up with a range of derivative products. All sorts of derivations can come from it. Maybe take one stanza and make a song of it. Maybe make a song of only the main points of the psalm. Maybe only one verse. Maybe there's a refrain that we want to, repetition, we want to repeat again and again and again. That is not in the official version, but in this performance version. There's all sorts of freedoms that we can use. So the end result will be, the official oral, the official written print, but also a range of, dramatic reading. People can make different voices, single voice, multiple voice, choirs, and just a range of performance products that can be developed from it. That is our dream, and that's what we hope to work towards.